Welcome to the hottest real estate topics on the planet, keeping you up to date with all the creative ways to buy and sell real estate without bank qualifying, so anyone can build real income starting today. Here is another great show with Dealmaker Bill and Pete the Rookie.
All right, here we are, another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies. Although lately I think it's been flipping houses for anyone, not just rookies.
Right.
We've been doing some advanced stuff lately, huh?
Oh yeah, might as well dive in, right?
I guss so. And you know, when we first started, I used to have flack about, this is supposed to be flipping houses, like renovation houses. Oh. No, we flip pretty houses.
Yeah, that's right.
It's much better. Anyways, episode number 397. Clear my throat here. Sorry about that. Here's the title. How do you know what creative real estate strategy to use with a seller? Here's the description. Are you sick and tired of having a blindfold on and walking around in the dark when talking to a real estate seller? You are not alone. Most real estate investors are stuck in a rut, throwing out generic offers and leaving sellers yawning and moving on to the next interested buyer. But what if you could understand how to craft offers so compelling, so irresistible, that sellers do a double take and often beg you to take the property? Uncover our successful formula to giving the perfect offer every time. Go beyond the high price game that leaves everyone feeling like a winner because your offers stands out from the crowd of boring, predictable proposals. I am talking about structured deals that have win-win scenarios and solutions nobody else is even considering. Whether you're a seasoned investor with a portfolio full of properties or a complete rookie starting out, this episode is packed with actionable insights and battle-tested strategies that will transform your real estate game and explode your odds of landing the real estate deals you deserve. Tune in now, take notes, and prepare to increase your real estate wealth. End of podcast. That's all I've got written down today.
No.
So let's...
Wait a minute. You told me you had a short write-up. That was it?
Yeah,
okie doke. Here we go.
So, first thing is housekeeping. So we record this podcast every Thursday morning at 9:30 a.m. and we live stream it to YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So if you would like to participate in the podcast or have questions about the topic of the podcast, you can go to any one of those platforms, and wherever they allow you to type something, you can type it there, and I will get it on my screen and gladly answer your questions pertaining to the podcast. However, if it is not about the podcast, I won't answer the question, but I will send you to WhatsApp Messenger. Let's Talk Real Estate, because we have 100 and something people in there that are like-minded. Napoleon Hill said you should be in a mastermind group, and that is definitely a mastermind group. Or you can go to flippinghousesforrookies.com, and you could go to the top right-hand corner and put in the support ticket. Okay, so with that said, make sure you like us. Make sure you subscribe to us, and make sure you leave us a review. So here we go. You ready?
Ready to go.
Here I am, sitting in the living room of a very, very, very stinky, kind of not clean house. South Elm Street, Wallingford, Connecticut.
Okay.
There's one guy or one boy sitting across from me, and his brother's in the bathroom. I can't remember the number of dogs, but it was 13 or 16 dogs in the basement.
Holy Jesus.
Kind of puppies. They're not really dogs. They're just kind of puppies.
Oh, the kind that really pee all over the place. Perfect.
And the house stunk like it.
Holy Jesus. Did your eyes sting from it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, now these two boys, they're the owners of the house, though?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was just going to tell you their parents had passed away.
Oh.
I think he was 21, about to be 22, and his brother was just about 18. And they had this house, and they were just living there. They didn't know what else to do. They didn't know where else to go. They were struggling with their mortgage payment.
Sure.
Because they were 21 years old, and he was like, he had a job, but I don't think he had a job that would support a house.
Yeah.
And his brother was still in school working part-time. And I'm like sitting on the couch, and he's sitting across from me, and the chit chat and the weather conversation and the dog conversation and all the, menial, time-sucking, time-wasting conversation had ended. He was patiently sitting across from me. We'll say nose to nose, toe to toe. We were not that close, but, within 5 feet anyways. Staring at me and waiting for me to give him an offer. It was my first time. I had no clue what to tell him.
You didn't have all your fancy formulas, your percentages, your equations. Not yet.
So by this time, I had sold a $43,000 toolbox because I was in the automotive repair business. I had a Mac toolbox that was as tall as I was, and it was 6 feet wide, and it was jam-packed with probably 15 or 20 years worth of collection of auto mechanic tools. Yep. Pneumatic tools, wrenches, all kinds of specialty tools. And I decided that because I had gotten out of the gas station business, I had decided I was broke. I was dead broke. And I decided that I was going to sell that toolbox. Somebody offered me $5,000 for it.
Ouch.
I told him there's no way I would sell it for less than $7,000. He said, done. And he gave me the cash.
Cash. Okay.
He loaded the toolbox up on his truck. He had a flatbed truck. And I went around the side of the building and went into the office with the cash in my pocket. And I called Ron LeGrand's office. I told him I just sold my toolbox for $7,000 and I was going to give $5,000 for his seminar and the other $2,000 for traveling expenses.
Man. Talk about rolling the dice, huh?
I went to that seminar. I got all hyped up. At night, that one night, there was a couple there that was doing phone calls. And I remember staying for the after session and listening to the phone calls.
And they're calling.
I don't remember who
they're
was
calling people with houses.
Live sellers.
Live purchase calls.
Sellers.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
I remember looking at the person sitting with me. I don't know if it was my wife or my father. And saying, are you kidding me? I could do a better job than that. I went home and it was 18 months later that I was sitting in this house. It took me 18 months, and I promise you, Peter, there are listeners right now that will hear me, and this will go right through them, and they will not get the meaning of this. They will not get it. They think that I'm selling them something or trying to convince them of something, or I don't know what it is. But I'm going to tell you that those 18 months were the worst months of my life because all I could think about was buying a house. My neediness level was so high, it was scaring everybody off.
Oh, man.
The only way I bought that house is I had to buy a coach. I signed up for Richard Roop's system. He was a student of Ron LeGrand.
Mm.
And my coach was Willie Hooks, which was an ex-NBA coach.
No kidding.
Yeah. He was the one that got me turned around. It was simple things. I spoke to him once a week. I emailed him more than that. And somehow I got turned around. And now, after I had put all my attention on getting a house, talking to a seller, I'm sitting in front of this seller wondering, what offer do I give him?
Mm.
Had no clue. But I remember Ron LeGrand saying in his seminar, subject to. It's the only thing I can remember. So I said to the guy, I was thinking about giving you what you owe on the property. Would you be willing to do that? He said, I don't think so. Why is that? Well, we need money to move.
Mm.
Okay, how much? I think we settled on $2,500.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
He said to me, I don't know, I got to think about it. And then it happened. The world changed. The front door busts open, like literally busts open, and the sunlight is, because there's no lights on it, and it's dark and dingy, and the sunlight comes through like a beam from a spaceship. And there is one of the most beautifulest women I have ever seen in my life. She was like a movie star, like she just came off of Glamour magazine.
Oh.
Comes busting through the house. It's his girlfriend.
Oh.
She says, how's it going? And I said, pretty good. And she looked at him, and he was kind of dismal. So I explained to her that I was there to buy the house. She goes, I know. He told me about it. Sorry I'm late.
Ah.
And I told her what the offer was. And he said he needs to think about it. She said, okay. So I didn't know what else to do. So I'm like, well, here's my card. Here's my phone number. Why don't the two of you speak? And I'll give you a call in a day or two. He said, okay. So I leave the house. First thing I do is as soon as I get outside, I take a deep breath of fresh air.
Yeah, and rub your eyes out.
Right. I walk down the stairs, to a couple flights of stairs. I walk down the sidewalk, and I get out to I'm like the third car in the driveway, and I get to my car, and I barely get my hand on the handle, and I hear, excuse me, sir? And I turn around, and there she is. Mm-hmm. And she's even more beautiful than when she was in the house. Now, I shouldn't be saying this because I'm an old man, but she was like in her mid-20s. She was just beautiful.
Well, it's not your fault that she's beautiful, even though you're old.
Breathtaking.
Yeah. So
I just froze because she's a beautiful woman, and I'm not very good with women, so I just froze. Kind of geeky type I am, right? Okay. She said, tell me what your offer is again. And I tell her again, take the house payments over, and here's how it works. Very simply, I didn't give her a seminar. Mm-hmm. And he wants, whatever, $2,500 to move, and I'll give him that as soon as as soon as we make a deal. She said, okay. And what did he say? He said he needed to think about it. She said, okay, no problem. Call tomorrow at 11 o'clock or 2 o'clock or whatever, and he'll have his answer for you. I said, you got it. And I called the next day, whatever time she told me, and he said, yes, I want to do it. How do we do the paperwork? And how soon can we get it done?
Yeah.
I bought that house for $70. $70. $70. I went back after I spent an endless night of reading paperwork and trying to figure out how to do a subject to deal. I went back with a half a dozen documents, because that's what Ron LeGrand told me to do. Right? Now, it's 2 years after the seminar. Remember that.
Yeah, but you had the coach. Did they have paperwork too?
The coach was gone. Well, the coach didn't have paperwork. No.
Oh, okay, so Ron LeGrand paperwork.
The coach was a mental coach, like mindset.
Right.
It was. You got to realize this is, a long time ago, 20-something years ago.
Yeah.
Right? I fumble through the paperwork. I go back, and at the time, I make him meet me somewhere for a notary, because there was no such thing as traveling notaries. I get all the paperwork signed, and I go to the city hall, and I file the deed, which I put it into a trust, just like Ron LeGrand taught me. I put it into a trust, and I filed the deed. I don't remember who my beneficiary was. I think it was one of my sales guys.
Mm-hmm.
It cost me $70. Okay, I raised the money. I had a partner at the time who since I don't have very good things to say about. He stole a lot of houses from me, but not that house. He was the one that put up the $10,000 for the coaching. Okay, am I frozen or is it you?
I don't know. You went first.
Okay.
I went second. We both came back.
All right, so he was the one that put up the $10,000 for the coaching, and he put up the $2,500 for the
guy the guy moved. Yeah.
I start renovating the house. Now, I have no idea what I'm doing. I start renovating the house. Now, fortunately, I owned an auto repair facility and a gas station in town, so I had a lot of customers, and I just started calling my customers.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing you know, the house is renovated. One of my buddies, Jay, was renovating the bathroom. And Jay's a funny guy because he kind of like fumbles around and sometimes makes mistakes and just kind of keeps going. And he's, kind of like, that's how he is. Well, he had a piece of plywood that looked like it was tile that he was putting in the bathroom. And he had cut it wrong. So he's going to throw it out.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked him if I could have that piece of plywood. He said, sure. So what are you going to do with it? I said, I need to make something. He said, okay. I said, you need help? I said, you got a cordless drill and a screw? Mm-hmm. He goes, sure. So I took a can of spray paint that I had in my car, black spray paint, and I put house for sale, no bank qualifying. Now this is like a 6 foot by 5 foot sign, and I took it out and I put it on the tree and I screwed it to the tree.
Oh boy.
We're still renovating.
Now, did you spray paint on the tile side or the backwood side?
The wood side.
Okay, it was just plain wood looking.
It was plywood.
Yeah, so not fancy, not pretty color, just plywood, black paint,
and
sign.
It was spray paint.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. A few days later, 3 or 4 days later, a realtor called me and asked me if you do a co-broke. I said, I don't know. She goes, what do you mean? I said, I don't know what that means. She said, would you sell it for, if I have a customer, if I sell it, will you give me 3%? I said, no, I'll give you 2%. Because I was a heavy negotiator on everything. She said, how about 2.5? I said, you got it.
Yeah.
Less than 30 days later. Now, by the way, my wife at the time was a mortgage broker, was doing selling mortgages. Mm-hmm. So I don't remember how much she made. I think she made like $8,000.
Really?
Or $6,000 or $3,000. I don't remember how much it was, but I made $68,000. $68,000. I split it with my partner, but that was my first deal.
Mm-hmm. And did you sell it?
Did you
sell it outright?
She sold it for cash.
Okay, get your money in. Well, your first deal, grab some money.
So we're going to talk about that. This is the rest of my podcast today, or the rest of this podcast today. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
Because I had no idea what I was doing, other than I had the balls, and more importantly, the passion to just go through my own fear.
Yeah.
And I got all the way, because now you have to realize I had talked to a lot of people. We were putting signs out, And at the time, I was paying Pat Live to answer the phones. And every day I would come home and there would be 3 or 4 faxes on my fax machine from the signs. I put out 20 to 25 signs a week, and that every day I got 3 to 4 calls. And it took me 18 months. Well, why did it take me 18 months? Well, it wasn't the amount of leads, because I was getting 15 or 20 a week.
Were you actually going and talking to them as well?
I had been.
Yeah, okay. So you're talking to them, but the one you're talking about today is the first one that went through.
Yep.
Okay.
So the coach helped a lot. We built, which we still have. You and I used to use it. We don't use it anymore. But we built my presentation pack. And that's what I would do, is I would go through the presentation pack. Because back then we did less pre-qualifying than we do now. It's much different than it is now. So I start going. So now I do the one deal, and I start getting used to it, and I start doing more deals. You know, I go from doing 1 to doing 2 in 3 months, and then 3 in 3 months, and like that. And I start doing more and more deals. And then up to a point where I'm doing between 5 and 7 deals a month. All within a year's time. The only thing that changed was my mindset. Okay? It wasn't anything other than that.
So did you learn something on this first deal you're talking about, or as it went along, it evolved and you got it more figured out?
Well, what did I tell you? What have I told you for all these years about your first deal?
Well, one thing you said is whatever that deal is, you'll have some confidence in it because you know how to do that. You'll tend to try to do that with the rest of the deals because you know how that one works.
And that's what you become good at, which is why I know this, because that's exactly what happened to me. So now I carry my story a little bit further, and I'm doing nothing but subject to offers. Now, you have to realize I'm in Meriden, Connecticut. My competition at the time, not knowing it, was Dan Merrill and Robin Thompson. Robin Thompson lived in Waterbury, which is 15 minutes away from Meriden. My competition is Dan Merrill and Robin Thompson, who are way above me. They have money, they have deals, they're way better than I am. Right?
You got cash.
And yeah. I didn't know this when I was doing this.
Yeah.
Right? So, anyways, long story short, I start making deals, and I'm doing just subject to deals. Right? Yeah. To a point where a couple of years later, 18 months later, I had $2.5 million worth of real estate, which now you gotta realize is 20 years ago, so this is a big deal.
Yeah, in today's market, that's houses were $7 million, $8 million, right?
Yeah. The houses were $130,000, $150,000, $180,000 houses, right? Now they're $400,000.
Yep.
So my point is I had a portfolio of $2 or $2.5 million. I'm having lunch with my partner, and he owns commercial real estate, and he owns like 3 or 4 buildings, and he's making $150,000, $160,000 a year off of 3 or 4 buildings. I have all these houses, and I'm barely making $2,000 a month. Thinking to myself, what have I done wrong? Well, what I did wrong is I took over a lot of subject to mortgages. I had a lot of deeds in my name, and I had no formula back then of how much equity. If they owed $190 and it was worth $190 and they were willing to give it to me for payments, I would take it. I didn't know about money now, money monthly, money later.
Yep.
I didn't know about that.
Was the cash flow decent, or the payments weren't enough to cover the mortgage?
What did I just say? I was barely making $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
Profit after I made all the payments.
Yeah.
I mean, I had dozens of houses.
Yep.
And I bought them and I sold them and I was doing great, except I wasn't making any money.
Wow.
In the interim, I hire an acquisition manager. We get busy enough where he's too busy, where I'm like, I can't do this anymore. He needs to sell the houses. I hire another acquisition manager. I take him. His name was Bill. I take him, and put him on sales, and I hired this new acquisition manager. Now, Bill was pretty good because he was around me when I was evolving, so I was learning things.
Yeah.
So he was good.
He was learning with you.
Yeah. The other guy's name was Chin. I start taking him around and I start selling. He starts shadowing me.
Yeah.
And I'm buying houses.
Mm-hmm.
And he would almost every time get in the car and he would ask me this question. How do you know what creative real estate strategy to use with a seller?
Mm-hmm.
Which is today's title.
Mm-hmm.
Now the podcast begins.
Okay. Story's over. Lesson starts.
Well, no, not really. I have more, but my point is this. I created a scale which nobody else has ever used or ever talks about, and I'm not a big enough guru for it to be popular because I just kind of do it here on my podcast. Mm-hmm. I do it with Creative REI Replay, and I do it with my coaching groups.
Yep.
It's a hierarchy type of a scale. So here's what I would like to portray to our listeners, which you should know this scale by now, but you need to realize the significance of it. Mm. And I want to talk about this just for a couple minutes because this is the formula that I speaketh of in the description.
Yep.
So it starts at the very top with a slot deal. A slot deal is a sandwich lease option transfer. That means that you are going to wholesale a lease option, and all you're going to make is your fee. There's no money monthly, there's no money later. Mm-hmm. It's just your fee, money now. Mm-hmm. That property can be purchased at up to 110% of its market value.
Yep.
And you could make money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's the part that almost makes no sense, but it totally works. The first little weekend seminar I went to before I got connected with you on this was explain some of the types of deals, right? Showed us about, but nothing about like the percentage, like 100%. I remember the last day he's giving us examples. What would you do with this? What would you do with that? And he put it on the board that was like 100% equity. Everyone in the audience after 3 days is still scratching our heads like, you can't buy that. We totally missed the point. Because the slot deal would have worked, but he didn't explain it like with the percentage of the equity like you do. So it went right over our heads without knowing the formula to say, well, in this case, I could do that. We're still trying to think what would work, and you can't do that. So right. It was amazing. And at the end, like, I should have knew that. And then I come to you, and you got these percentages like, what? And no one else has it. So I just want to throw that in because that really threw me, and it made so much sense when I heard your percentages. So the first one, 100, 110.
So for the top one, it has no equity. It's loan to value, meaning how much is owed on it, worth its value is 0. The next one down is an option agreement, just a plain option agreement. That's like buying and selling as if you were a realtor, except without a license because you're part owner in the property because of the option agreement. You have a principal share. It's very minute, but because you're on the document as an owner, you can sell it just like a realtor without any license.
Yep.
Or fees.
Yep.
That's got to have 10% worth of equity.
Mm-hmm.
So the loan to value ratio, what it's worth compared to its value, has to be 90%.
Maximum.
Okay. The next one down is a rent to own, which is very similar to a slot deal. It's a sandwich lease option transaction. But you stay in the deal because the seller wants you to manage the property, and they're willing to give you 15% worth of equity, and you're going to make 20 to 25% cash flow. Mm-hmm. So just because you and I went through this recently, I want to explain that. So if you have a $2,000 rent, 20% of $2,000 means you have to make at least $400 a month in cash flow.
Yep.
Okay, at least.
Well, to make it worth your while. So,
right,
just fair.
The reason why I'm telling you all this is because I don't want you to get out and have a $2.5 million portfolio making $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
I was a multimillionaire and I should have been rich. But I sold that portfolio off because as soon as I saw that, I sold it. I was also going through a bankruptcy at the time, so I didn't bankrupt anything, but I didn't do bankruptcy. I was just upside down with another business, and I had a $250,000 debt, and I was looking to pay it off.
Yep.
Which all of this happened with real estate. Real estate paid for all of it, which is why I got smart.
Not the bankruptcy, that was the other business, but the real estate, the profits paid it.
So we have a slot deal,
Yep.
0% equity. We have an option deal with 10% equity. We have a lease option deal, sandwich lease option deal with 15% equity that we're staying in it. We're staying in it, so we got 15% equity, 20 to 25%.
Yep.
The slot deal, we're not staying in it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
The next one down is a subject to. Subject to has 20% worth of equity. In other words, they owe up to 80% of what it's worth.
Right.
With all the liens, with all the mortgages, with all the HOAs and the taxes and whatever's attached is no more than 80%.
Right.
This is the first place we get a deed.
Mm-hmm.
The next one down is a rehab retail, which you have to get for 70% of loan to value, which means you have 30% worth of equity. The next one down is wholesale, which is 60% loan to value and 40% worth of equity. And then the last one is seller financing, which is 100% equity and no loan to value.
There's no loan. It's paid off, free and clear.
So in the old days, what we used to teach, or what I used to teach, is ask the seller. The sentence was when we were doing the prospect-suspect forms, we would ask the person, a lot of times we do something with the financing. You have a mortgage on the property, right? Or how much do you owe on the property or something like that.
Yeah.
And they would tell us. And we would take that number and divide it into the value of the property, which we would get off of Zillow or Trulia or Redfin or Realtor.com, any one of those, right? Or a combination or an average of all of them. Right? And we would divide what they owe. We would put what they owe into the calculator, hit the divide button, and then what it's worth, and then hit equals, and it would give us a percentage. Let's say that percentage was 75%. So we would look at our chart, our formula, and say, well, we can't do a renovation, a rehab retail, because that's 70%. But we can do a subject to deal because that's 80% loan to value and 75% is less than 80%.
Right.
So that meant that we could start at the subject to offer and work our way up the scale until we found out what the seller was willing to do.
Well, that sentence, stop. That is huge what you just said. You got to let people let that soak in. So whatever, like the lowest percentages of loan and the highest percentage of equity on the chart, you can start there, and anything above that would work because it's less than a minimum. It's fine, but it gives you that or anything above, and then it's up to the seller whatever they're willing to do.
Right.
And we talk about this. We laugh about some of the newbies, like, oh, I got a subject to deal because the percentage is right. Well, did you ask the seller? I mean, it's up to the guy, but it gives you a possibility. And then if no, another possibility, and if no, another possibility. So you have a few offers you can make, and hopefully the guy's happy with one of them. But
so that's why I say in the description, uncover our successful formula to giving the perfect offer every time. Go beyond the highest price game that leaves everyone feeling like a winner because your offers stand out from the crowd of boring, predictable proposals.
Yeah.
Because when you're doing that, there's a lot of things there. You're asking questions. You're finding out what the person's ruin is. Like what's ruining them with this house. Why are they selling it?
Yeah.
It's a very in-depth conversation.
Right. It's not, to me, it's not just the number.
Right.
It's like, what's the person going through? Which deal? The deals are different. You know, if the guy's staying in the deal, he has to deal with the property some more and handle things and maybe handle a tenant or he has to work on it some more. Once we get the deed, he doesn't have to do any work anymore. So it's not just a number. It's like, how much does the seller still have to do or not? How much do we have to do? And what works better for the seller that makes them happy? It's not just a number.
Yep.
So that one sentence was a
Charlotte
mouthful.
says, love that. Thank you, Charlotte.
Okie doke.
So, so here's what happens is you're in their wheelhouse now. You're giving them, because the formula is the correct math plus the seller's emotional desires equals a deal.
Yep.
So we're giving them the math and we're asking them, why are you selling? What's the problem? And we solve that problem.
You know, it is so big that I've actually offered people a ton of money. But it's like, I don't want to do that. Like, well, why not? It's like, I just don't want to bother.
Right.
You know, it's like, seriously? They had so much money, like, I just want to go away. But it's $100,000. They go, I don't care. At the same time, we bought houses for maybe $50,000 less than it should be, or $100,000 less than it should be, because please just take this off my hands. It is such a hassle. How much? Yes, just please. And you.
How long will it take? Is their question.
Yeah. How fast can I get the hell out of here? And you would think, but a house is an asset. A house can be a big pain in the beep to some people.
Right.
You'd be surprised. It's that emotional desire. Sometimes it's the money, sometimes it's something else. You have to ask the question.
It's the right math plus the emotional desires of the seller equals a deal.
Yeah.
So the hierarchy that I'm talking about, the formula that I'm talking about, is the math.
Yeah.
The reason why you start at the lowest number is because obviously we make the most amount there.
Yeah, the more equity in the house, in the deal, the more equity we get, if not right away, when it sells. And we get to take that equity.
Right.
At some point. Right now, later, but it's ours.
Right. So this worked for a long time. It still does work. Mm-hmm. We have dozens and dozens and dozens of podcasts here because we're on episode number 397. So there's 400 episodes here. And there are dozens and dozens of podcasts that we did on how to have these conversations and how to talk to these people. And quite frankly, I generated, with the help of two other partners, there's 4 of us total, but Creative REI Replay.
Mm-hmm.
Creative REI Replay is a software that helps you find deals, keep track of them, but we made Sean, my other partner, created a calculator to do all this math for you. So you don't have to worry about this math. You just put in the numbers the seller tells you, and it automatically tells you by a red light, a green light, and a yellow light, just like a stop sign. Obviously, red light is, don't do that,
Brakes.
don't do that.
Put the brakes on.
Yeah, stop. Yellow light means, well, if you change a few numbers, you could probably do this deal. And a green light is, go, baby, go, hit the gas pedal, get this document signed, you got a great deal.
Yeah.
Right? Now, this is over 20-something years. That calculator alone is nobody else has one like it, because it covers all 7 of these deals. Actually, it doesn't do wholesale, because David Espelot, who owns REI Replay, who's our partner, we don't do wholesale deals in Creative REI Replay, but we do everything else.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he had the wholesale, but your company with him is for the creative finance part.
Yeah, and wholesale is dead as far as I'm concerned. But we'll let the market bring that around. Why would you do a wholesale deal at 40, 50, 60 cents on a dollar on an ugly house and have to pass it off to a buyer that's not qualified when you could do a slot deal with a pretty house and make more money.
Yeah. And in this market, people aren't giving houses
you do
away.
A slot deal. You do a slot deal on a $400,000 house. You should make $20,000 or $30,000, no problem. You're not, and there's more of them, and it's easier to sell because it's pretty. Why do a wholesale deal? Why be a wholesaler that has, 6 virtual assistants calling 10,000 people a week asking, would you sell for 5 cents on a dollar? Why do that? It doesn't make sense to me. But that's just my own thing, right? All right. So, let's back up. So once you distinguish through conversation, I'm gonna come back. I just stopped that conversation about creative REI replay. I'm gonna circle back to that 1 second. I stopped it midway because I want to finish this thought and then come back to it. So once you figure out as you're going through the scale, which what we would teach for a very long time in the past is you start at the lowest one, say it's subject to, which by the way, the whole script, an entire script, in the complexity of the script of a subject to deal is this. Would you be willing to sell the house for what you owe on it? If they say no, you say, how much did you want? And if you could put the deal together because there's enough equity, because they want $5,000 or $10,000 worth of equity, you say, well, the only way that I can give that to you is to write you a note that's principal only, that's no interest, no payments.
Right.
You get it when I sell the house.
Yep.
And 90% of them say yes. So they have a $200,000 house. They're asking 140. 20,000 of it is equity, and 120,000 of it is what they owe the bank.
Yep.
I did those deals, dozens and dozens and dozens of those deals. That's what I did for the first several years of my life.
Yeah.
Right? Which, by the way, what was happening was I was in all those houses, 12 to 15 houses a week, and I was losing deals because people were not taking the subject to, because they were like, I don't want the deed to stay in my name, and I didn't know what to do. Which is why I had to go, I didn't devise them. I had to go learn about these other deals, like options and slot deals and subject, and land contracts and all these other deals. I had to continue learning till I can get it all in one package.
Right.
And then eventually I came up to a point to, no matter what the seller says right now, we have an offer, we have a proposal on what they want, no matter what.
Right. Can you back up a sec though? I want to make sure I heard you. The seller said they didn't want you to have the deed, or they didn't want it in their name, because you're talking subject to. So
they didn't want to give me the deed and the mortgage stay in their name.
Right. Okay.
That was my biggest objection.
Yeah. Oh.
It took me about 2 years to figure out how to overcome that.
Yep.
So when I'm here on the podcast and I'm just like, just do this, I don't tell my backstory enough. I don't tell you the pain that I went through, and I don't tell you the agony and the amount of effort that it cost me, and emotion and time, and sitting in houses and people saying no to me before I figured out that exact sentence, which is why I get a little testy when people change my words on my sentences, because I've done thousands and thousands of nose to nose, toe to toe. I lost track at 4,300 or 4,800 or something like that of sitting in people's houses.
Yep.
Now we don't do that, but back then we did. So the point is that you would start at, say, subject to, and what I would do is I would make that offer, and I would talk about nothing but subject to, and they would say no, no, no. I would get 3 to 5 no's, and then I would sit back and I would lean back and I would say, well, how about this? I got another idea. And then I would move up to the lease option deal, and I would talk about that, and then they would say no, no, no. And then I would say, okay, well, how about this idea? And you propose each one as their own new unit at a time.
Yeah.
You do start, change, stop on just that deal strategy.
Yeah, you don't want to give somebody 3 or 4 options. It's too confusing, and it's a lot to understand one at a time. And
then when you get all done, they'll say, well, what about this one you were talking about? And they'll come back to the one that rung true to them. Okay. Now, that was cool, and I still do that because it's easy to me. But as we were teaching people, it was too complex. And rookies were having trouble, like, what deal do I do? circling back to the creative REI replay thing, so now I'm thinking, well, if I build a calculator, then it'll be easy. This is pre the realization of what makes a deal. What makes a deal is the proper math plus the emotional desire. Sorry, I went blank. Yeah. Equals a deal. Because I'm teaching all these people in creative REI replay. Because every Thursday night for an hour and a half, I'm on a call coaching them on this is what you do with your deals. Mm-hmm. Right? Which is stupid for me because it killed my coaching business. Because why would people want to pay me coaching when I'm on this call for an hour and a half every week? Which is ridiculous because I don't do anything other than talk about the deal. In my own coaching group, I hold your hand and make sure the paperwork's right. I make sure you're saying the right things. It's a whole different thing. Yeah. And I'm telling you, if you think, whether it's me or anybody else, if you think you're going to actually do deals without coaching, it's a rarity. Some do it. And if you are doing deals without coaching, you're not doing enough. You're nowhere near your potential.
Well, you said a few minutes ago, it took you 18 months to get your first deal, but you had a coach to get that far. Without a coach, you probably wouldn't have.
I would have never done it. I would have never done it without.
You know, and I was talking to you back in those days, but I had no idea what you were doing. But even you, as smart as you seem and knowledable, you don't start off like this.
I still have coaches.
Yeah. Well, to learn the next thing, to move ahead. Yeah. And the things change, the market, the society.
Sean and I just bought a $30,000 coaching program. It never stops. Tiger Woods is like that. Why shouldn't I be like that? All the famous baseball players, football players, basketball players, they're all the same.
Yeah.
You could always be better.
Yeah.
Right? Anyways, the point is that in creative REI replay, I'm like, do the math. And I realize, why aren't these people making deals? And it's because they have to figure out the emotional desire. So I went into apathy. I just gave up. I'm like, it seems too simple to me, but to others it was too difficult. Too many pieces moving around, too many parts moving around. Too many people are linear. You do one thing and then the next thing and the next thing. They can't be encompassed and have 3 or 4 things going on at once.
You have to be pretty good at any subject to do that. And, once you get there, it's hard to see why someone else can't see it. But when you're on the path, you ain't. And it's an interesting phenomenon because I don't think I'm a smart guy. I'm just dumb enough to go do 4,000 or 5,000 deals, 4,000 or 5,000 nose to nose, toe to toe. I just got big balls. That's all. I just go talk to anybody. Yeah. My kids tell me that. It's like, Dad, you can't do that. What do you mean? You can't talk to everybody in the grocery store. I'm like, why not? They always talk back, right? Yup.
Especially with kids. They hate when I smile at kids and say hello to them. They're like, Dad, that's creepy. I'm like, why? The kid's a human being.
I know.
Their mother's right there. I'm not doing nothing wrong. Like, I like your bow or, whatever. Anyway, so they say that's creepy. So I stopped doing that. Anyway, so here's the point. I decided that what I needed to do is stick with one offer and teach that one offer until you can get used to the emotional factor. So the only way that you're going to do real estate is to put yourself in a position to talk to a seller and study your seller. Because too many rookies, too many new people study real estate. The math, the bedrooms, the location, the comps, all the crap that's not going to buy them the house.
See, they think they're realtors, huh?
What they really need to do is they need to study the seller. They need to make their offers and then use our great equalizer, which I started to talk about before and I stopped, is money now, money monthly, money later. Because you need to look at that in every deal because that will bring all of time together. That'll bring a 10-year deal together in one formula. How much money am I making now? How much money am I making monthly for 10 years? And how much am I making later with the appreciation? It takes time and puts it all in one place so you can calculate whether or not the deal is viable for you and the seller and the buyer and the money investor if you have a private money investor. It takes everything and puts it together in one spot. So, lately, what we've done this past year is we teach people how to do the slot deal, which is a sandwich lease option transfer. And we make the offer so irresistible, which is what I was talking about earlier in the program, is we show them how much money they're making by keeping the property for 3 years instead of selling it. And we have a script and a calculator that does all of that, which, by the way, that calculator, you get a free trial of it or free use of it, plus the script and everything I'm talking about. I put that link inside of the description, and you can go get use of it. I think it's for 2 or 4 weeks or something like that. And you can go play around with it. So everything I'm telling you about right now is at your fingertips. If you actually think that you want to learn how to do this and you think you want to do this, the way to do it, after all these years, a decade of teaching people how to do it, hundreds and hundreds of investors, millions and millions of dollars. I think I lost track. It was $50 million of deals that I've done myself and with clients. It was a lot of money. I've never added it up. Just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. So all you have to do is you have to learn one script. You don't even have to learn it. You just got to read it and know how to do the calculator. It is literally 1 or 2 phone calls, you got it licked. And the sellers love you because you're taking a house that's worth $200,000 and you're offering them almost $400,000 for that house over time. So they love you. So here's what I did, Peter, just to prove my point. I asked my wife this morning if she knew how much I sold that house for in Elm Street, and we couldn't remember. But for some reason, I got a little glimmer of I sold that house for $168,000.
Yeah.
So I put that in the calculator. So I told you I sold it for $168,000. I made $68,000.
Right.
Okay. I'm not sure if it was $168,000 or $198,000, but I took the lower number just to prove my point. Okay. Had I hung on, so I made $68,000. You would think that that's a big payday, right?
Yeah.
Had I hung on to that property, which I wish I did, and did a lease option, so in other words, I sold it to an end user that would have done a lease option, a rent to own. Over the course of 10 years, which it's been more than 10 years, it's been almost 20 years. It's been more than 20 years. Let's do that because the calculator doesn't go that high. The total sales price at $168,000, which that house would be probably worth $350,000, $400,000 now.
Sure.
I would have made $161,000 for 10 years. I would have made $322,000 over the last 20 years. So if you do 68,000 divided by 322,000, I would have made 211% more money. Back then, flipping real estate like we do was an infomercial and everybody poo-pooed it, so you didn't tell people what you did. The only way that you could actually find this information and buy tools, because I remember when I used to go to the Ron LeGrand boot camps, there's people there, oh, he's just a sell fest. I look forward to going there and buying the tools. I bought websites, I bought paperwork, I bought all kinds of stuff because I couldn't find it anywhere else. Nowadays, it's much different because everybody and their brother's teaching how to do real estate like they're the only ones and they figured it out. It is not true, including myself. It is not true. What the community needs now is a standardization. Somebody needs to standardize how to make these offers. And I'm not saying I'm the guy, but I can tell you that nobody teaches my hierarchy like I do and has that simple of a formula to be able to know which deal to do when.
Yep.
Right? So, could you imagine if I held that house, I would have made $322,000. That means I would have sold that house for $660,000. I sold it for 168. I would have sold it for 668,000 had I kept it for 20 years.
Yeah, and that includes the money you got for deposit, the cash flow, the money when you sold it, but all the other things that we're not going to get into today, but there's depreciation, there's tax benefits, all that stuff. That's real money by the time it's over. It's not just,
Right.
it's beyond just the number. This is almost like the emotional desire to me. Like, wait a minute, if you hang out that house and you get this benefit, you go to see the tax guy, you owe $20,000 less. Things like that you almost don't see. But saving $20,000 or $10,000 or $30,000, that's real money in your pocket that you get to keep.
Yeah, but wait a minute.
Yes.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
I think you're missing the most important point.
What?
This is one house.
Well, yeah.
One house.
Mm-hmm.
If I did one a year for 20 years,
You have to put cash down on something. Mm-hmm.
So Charlotte says, do you usually have to put cash down on sub 2? I've been focusing on slot because we don't have cash to invest. That is 100% correct, Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not all subject to deals need cash, but you have to realize the reason why you can't do, or anybody can't do, or hasn't been able to do subject to deals in the last couple of years is because the appreciation has outweighed the necessity to sell. Because you could put it on the market and in 5 days get your price.
Yeah.
So the equity keeps building in the property. So if you were to sell it for what you owe on it at 160, in another month it's worth 165, in another 2 months it's worth 180. And it just keeps building. But that's changing.
Yeah.
As of this podcast, that's changed. I mean, I was talking to my sister the other day who lives in Fort Myers, and her comment to me, just in a by the way conversation, she's talking about her girlfriend that's selling a house, and she's like, you can't sell shit in Cape Coral anymore. It's over. I'm like, what do you mean? She says, well, she's had my house on the market for like I don't know, I forgot what it was. Hundreds of days.
Yeah. More than 3 months then. More than 90 days. Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
You know, she had bought the house for $180,000, 5 years ago, and was now asking $400,000 and wasn't getting any offers.
Yeah.
So, I hear more and more of that these days.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so to sum things up, the best thing that you could do is just what Charlotte was talking about, is you should do slot deals. You should do slot deals because what that does is it forces you to study your seller. And understanding sellers and how to handle sellers is the wealth in this business. Because once you understand the emotional desires of your sellers, the math is done for you in Creative RER Replay, or the tool I'm giving you today. The math is done for you in the calculator. You don't need to go learn about all the different deals these days. You just got to know how to talk to the seller, have them, extract the numbers from them, put them in the calculator, and it tells you automatically which deal to do. So you don't have to do like what I've done all these years with a calculator in your head, right? Mm-hmm. Which is kind of funny because when I do support tickets for Creative RER Replay and I do the support calls, people ask me the calculator, and I tell them all the time, well, I could try to help you with the calculator, but I don't use it. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I designed it. I do it in my head, and I do it with my $5 calculator. I don't have to use that, so I don't use it a lot. But Sean helps, and I go in there, and I can use it because I know how it works, but sometimes I fumble around with it. Mm-hmm. The most important thing you could do is slot deals, which is paying up to 110% for the property. You get an option agreement from your seller, and you go wholesale that option agreement to the person that's going to live in the house, and you make $3, $5, $10,000, $20,000. Hell, if you're doing big numbers like $700,000-$800,000 houses, you make $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 doing that.
Yep.
We were looking at a $3 million house, and we were looking at making $150,000 on one deal. Mm-hmm. And it's not harder to do or easier to do than the $50,000 deal. It's the same transaction.
Yeah. That's the crazy part about it. Now, can I throw something that I shouldn't be, throwing a wrench in, but you mentioned something a few weeks ago. If you offer a person the slot deal, he might go, no, I don't want to deal with the property anymore. Couldn't you go down to perhaps a rent-to-own, right? Guy goes, I know, but I just don't want to have the responsibility anymore. Well, would you give me the deed? He might say yes. So you could go down too if they don't want to. If they don't want to bother.
When he says I don't want to be bothered with it, I would tell him, well, if you give me 15% worth of equity and 20 or 25% worth of cash flow, I'll manage it for you.
Exactly.
Oh, how does that work?
Yeah.
And then eventually, like I was on a call a couple weeks ago for you, and the girl's like, I just want to sell it. I'll just take what I owe on it. And people just tell you shit like that.
Right. So as much as you can start with the best possible deal for us and go up the scale, and you can start at the top if it was the best deal for the seller. The higher you go is the better for the seller because he gets more money. He doesn't want to be bothered. You come down a little bit, and maybe that's the one he wants to do. So you can play it up and down until you find the thing that's right money, the right seller, desired seller.
We need to go, yeah. So the summary of now is, if you do find one of those deals, you should send a memorandum and get it in writing, and then either sign an option agreement with them or a purchase and sales agreement with them. Probably a purchase and sales agreement. And if you don't know how to do the deal, go find someone like me that can do the deal. Go to your local RIA. Send a support ticket into us. Just start outflowing. And finding somebody that will give you $1,000, $2,000, $500 for that contract to assign it. And just make some money. Don't throw the deal away because you don't know how to do it. Or get involved with Creative REI Reply, and for the amount of money we charge, we'll help you. We'll coach you through it on a Thursday night, and the system will do all the paperwork for you, and there you go. Right? So for a rookie, the best deal you could do is the slot deal, the sandwich lease option transfer. You get used to, which also includes options, and it also includes rent to own. Those three transactions are very similar because if you've rented from a landlord in the past, 90% of the deal. So the important thing is to get used to talking to people, not worrying about the math, not worrying about the paperwork, because in Creative REI Reply, we do all that for you. Your only job is to understand the seller so you can have a good conversation, so you can find out what's gnawing at them, what's ruining them, what's stopping them from moving on in their life with this house. And then when you do that and you get good at that, all the rest of it just falls in place. It is really that simple. So it's just a matter of getting on the phones and talking to people. And that is the trick of being successful in this business. So I think I've covered everything, Peter. I know I cut you off there a few minutes ago because we're at like 1 minute, 1 hour, 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. So is there anything else that you wanted to say?
No, that was it. I only say that because sometimes our listeners are a little more advanced. And it just dawned on me because you had said that about starting at the top slot deal, and you can come down if the seller, because I've seen that. No, I don't want to do that. Well, you go down a little. So you can go up or down. That's the point. Well,
to your point, the solopreneur script, which you will get as part of the link in the description, does that. It starts at the top and works its way down. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but we used to teach, you start at the bottom, work your way up. Mm-hmm. And then I wrote the solopreneur script, and it starts at the top and works your way down. Mm-hmm. So it does exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, because again, it's the math that has to work for everybody, but it's what the person wants to do.
It's their emotional desires.
Can't get around that one.
Okay, thank you for being with us today. Thank you for listening. Hopefully you had some light bulbs go off and some aha moments. Because remember what I told you last week on the podcast. I'm not trying to change what you're doing. I'm just trying to change the way you think about creative real estate. And that's our plan. So I hope you flourish and prosper this week. Make sure you subscribe to us wherever you're listening to us or watching us. Make sure you like us wherever you're listening to us and watching us. Make sure you If you have any questions, you can go to WhatsApp Messenger and type in "Let's Talk Real Estate," or you can go to flippinghousesforrookies.com and click on the top right hand side button on the support button and send us an individual message. Okay. With that said, we will chat with you on episode number 398, which in time is 1 week from now. All right. Flourish and prosper. Have a good week. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to the hottest real estate topics on the planet with Bill and Pete. If you want to continue learning how to buy and sell real estate without money or credit, head over to flippinghouses.club for some cutting-edge real estate wealth tools. Or contact us at info@flippinghouses.club.